The envelope was heavy in a way paper shouldn't be. He set it on the breakfast bar between the cereal bowls and the construction paper dragon our 8-year-old made in art class. No jailing. No scene. Just a man who'd slept on the couch for a week and looked like a person who had finally chosen a door and was ready to walk through it. Jenna, he said, voice level, you've been served. I stared at my own name like it belonged to someone I used to be. The return address was the downtown courthouse. The title, Complaint for Divorce, sat at the top in a font that made everything feel both official and unforgiving. My husband, Will, slid a second sheet across. The kind of calm, boring mercy that always made me feel both safe and seen. I'll be at my sister's for a few days, he said. Email only, please. I'll pick up the kids from school today and keep them overnight so you can handle what you need to handle. There's a proposed temporary schedule attached. If you want a different split, send it by email. Our daughter padded in with her unicorn slippers, hair tangled in sleep knots. Mommy, is that a permission slip? She asked. Will's face softened in the precise way that used to unspool me. Something like that, kiddo, he said, kissing her crown. He didn't look at me again. By 8:10 a.m., the garage door had murmured closed, and I was alone with a stack of paper that translated my worst choices into bullet points. People talk about affairs like they fall out of the sky and land on your lap. Mine grew like mold. Quiet, opportunistic, thriving in the damp corners I refused to open to light. It started during Q4, because of course it did. Late nights. Takeout cartons. Slides that bled into sunrise. Tom from Product had a way of making our broken roadmap feel like a puzzle we were smart enough to solve if we just leaned a little closer. He'd say, you saved this release, and hand me a Diet Coke, and I'd feel 25 again and starving for the gold star I had trained myself to stop asking for. Will doesn't hand out gold stars. He hands out steadiness. Packed lunches with sticky notes, oil changes before the light turns on, a back rub after the kids fall asleep. I knew the value of that. I just wanted something that glittered. The first kiss was in the stairwell, exactly as pathetic and predictable as that sentence sounds. The second was in Tom's car after a celebratory drink he insisted on because the beta finally didn't crash. I told myself we'd stop. We didn't. December was a blur of hotel receipts I labeled as vendor meetings, and Slack threads that had nothing to do with work after 9 p.m. I told myself I was only borrowing attention, that I'd pay it back with a New Year's resolution and fresh sheets. I told myself I wasn't disgusting because I still made school drop-offs and dentist appointments. Infidelity has a way of convincing you that being good at chores is the same as being good. I had 1,000 chances to stop. I took none of them. The one I didn't see coming arrived via the ethics hotline. We'd always joked about the hotline, the way people get cynical when they feel invincible. An anonymous suggestion box for HR to ignore, Tom said once, rolling his eyes. Someone didn't ignore. We got called in for a conversation on a Wednesday afternoon. HR's conference room is all glass, which felt obscene for what the room held. Me, Tom, an HR manager named Karina with a careful smile, and a compliance officer who didn't smile at all. Karina had a folder full of screenshots. Some from Slack, which I had forgotten we retained for quality and training, some from my company email, which I should never have used, and one still from the parking garage camera showing exactly what it looks like when you think the corner camera can't see through tinted windows. It can. Company policy prohibits romantic relationships where there is a direct or indirect reporting line, Karina said, gently clinical. And all employees are expected to avoid conflicts of interest. We need you both to confirm the scope and timeline. I remember thinking two things at once. 1. Do not cry, you will make this worse, and 2. Children should not be asked to hold their breath this long to keep a mother's secret from cracking open. I didn't cry. I told the truth and also somehow made it sound like the weather had done this to me. Tom looked the way cowards look when the music stops. Immediately self-preserving. This was a lapse, he said, as if he'd miskeyed a password. He offered to resign for the good of the team. Compliance nodded like they'd hoped for that sentence. I got suspended pending investigation, which is a phrase that can hold a week or a career. I was escorted out like a stranger who'd wandered in without a badge. Will didn't yell when I told him that night. He listened to my careful excuses like a man who has finally decided to stop negotiating with a liar. Is it over? He asked. Yes, I said. It was because HR ended it. Not because I did. He nodded. Okay, he said. Starting tonight, email only. Keep everything about the kids in our family wizard. I'll sleep on the couch until I get the paperwork filed. He made chicken nuggets for the kids like a soldier on a shift. I stood in the doorway with my useless apologies and watched my son ask for more ketchup like we were not quietly dissolving in front of him. The paperwork didn't take long. No-fault divorce exists for a reason. Because judges can't arbitrate feelings and evidence of sex in a stairwell is still just paperwork. Will's filing cited irretrievable breakdown of the marriage. He didn't mark adultery as a fault ground, even though he could have. A kindness, or a choice to keep it out of affidavits the kids might read one day. He proposed joint legal custody, a 50-50 parenting schedule once the school year ended, and a temporary schedule for the spring semester built around their soccer practices and piano lessons. He asked for the house and offered a buyout of my equity with proceeds from his 401k and a HELOC. He had spreadsheets for everything, with tabs that made my stomach turn. I took the papers to my sister's guest room and stared at the ceiling fan until it all blurred. My lawyer. Referral from a friend whose marriage had exploded last year for different reasons. Read the complaint and said, he's being generous. The word scraped my nerves. Generous felt like a ribbon on a guillotine. You have options, she added. You could contest custody, argue for primary, try to leverage fault for alimony, but in this state adultery rarely changes property or custody unless it's egregious or the kids were harmed. What a judge will care about is the parenting plan, stability, and your ability to co-parent without turning the children into couriers. Also the job. HR may let you resign, but if they terminate you for cause, that changes the financial calculus. HR did not fire me for cause. They offered me a mutual separation, with a modest severance if I signed a release. It included an agreement not to seek rehire and a paragraph that made it clear that if I sued, I would lose and owe them fees. I signed. Tom resigned the same day and posted a LinkedIn update about new beginnings that made me want to throw my laptop. I deactivated my Slack with the fake breeziness of someone closing a chapter they wrote in disappearing ink. The kids knew nothing, which felt like both mercy and a lie that grew teeth each day. Will and I agreed by email because that was the rule, to say mom and dad are going to live in different houses, and to hold off on reasons until we had a therapist to coach us. My son, who is 6 and obsessed with dinosaurs, asked if dad would still do T-Rex voices at bedtime. My daughter asked if she could keep the dog at both houses. I said yes to both, because I would have promised them the moon in that moment if they'd asked. A week later, we met with a family therapist named Andrea who had a bookshelf full of children's books about big feelings, and a calm that felt like a weighted blanket. She told us not to say the word affair. She told me not to cry in front of the kids like I was asking them to comfort me. She told Will to save the legal talk for emails and the appointments. She told us to say, we have grown-up problems we couldn't fix. We both love you. The schedule will tell you where you sleep, and love will live in both houses. I hated her a little for being right. We did the temporary hearing over Zoom. Judge Reyes in a square on my screen, both lawyers in squares, me and Will in separate quiet rooms. The judge approved the temporary schedule with minor tweaks, and told us to complete a co-parenting class before the final hearing. She scheduled mediation for 3 months out. She said, keep the conflict low. Children remember tone more than words, and I wrote it down even as I wondered how to dial my shame to any volume that didn't sound like static. Will wins in ways that don't look like a scoreboard until you learn how to read it. He didn't go nuclear. He didn't tell the kids I blew up their life. He didn't send my parents the screenshots. He documented, he proposed, he followed rules. He moved to his sister's to spare the children sleeping above a Cold War. He made pancakes on his days, and didn't lecture me about protein when I sent them back wired on Saturday donuts. He texted me a photo of them riding bikes and didn't add their fine without you where my own brain already screamed it. My consequences were quieter and meaner than a movie montage. I sold my wedding ring to cover the retainer, I told my parents I'd left my job and they said, "We're here," in the kind of voice you earn by not embarrassing them, a tone I didn't deserve. I packed boxes with the numb efficiency of someone moving in a dream. Half my books, half the mugs, the blue blanket that always fell off the back of the couch with gravity's indifference to domestic agreements. The house smelled like lemon cleaner, and everything we built. We told the kids on a Sunday afternoon. Andrea sat with us on the rug and coached the script under her breath. "We're going to live in 2 houses, I said, and my voice shook but didn't break. "That's a big change," Will added steady. "You didn't cause it and you can't fix it." Our daughter cried and said she didn't want a calendar to tell her where to sleep. Our son asked if the T-Rex voice would still sound the same at Dad's. I said yes. I did not say, "It will sound the same because your father is the same, and I am the one who forgot who I was." Kids don't need your reasons. They need your calendar to be true and your promises to be boring. I bought a magnetic board and wrote the schedule in dry erase colors. I drew hearts on both houses. Our daughter drew a dragon between them. "He's guarding," she said. "So the love doesn't spill out." Mediation came and went like a long dentist appointment. Uncomfortable, necessary, expensive, and a relief when it was over. We settled almost everything. When we signed the final agreement, Will looked like a man who had carried something heavy a long way and finally set it down. He didn't look happy. He looked done. I still can't tell the kids the truth. Maybe when they're grown and ask the hard version of why. Maybe never, for their sake. It doesn't change the lesson I bleed with every logistics email. He didn't win because a judge likes fathers or because HR saved him from being the bad guy. He won because he refused to make our children carry my mess. He won because the person he said he was, the one who does the boring, faithful thing, turned out to be a life raft, and he stayed in it when I swam toward a ship that turned out to be a mirror. 2 months after the decree, a package arrived at my apartment. A little toolkit, the kind with a miniature level and a hammer with a pink handle like a joke. The note inside was in Will's handwriting, so you don't have to call a neighbor to hang the kids' charts. W. I sat on the floor and cried because that is who he is, and because I had traded that kind of kindness for a stairwell that smelled like pine sol and regret. The kids are adapting. Our son does T-Rex voices on my nights and Dad's. Our daughter tapes her calendar above both beds. Will and I send each other photos from soccer and recitals and school art night. We say "nice job" when the other remembers the snack sign-up. We don't talk about the past. We talk about pickup time and sunscreen and the science fair. If you're waiting for me to say I'm redeemed, I'm not. I'm trying to live a life where my apologies don't ask anyone else to carry them. I'm learning how small attention feels compared to the weight of a kid asleep on your shoulder when the movie runs long. I walk past the stairwell at work sometimes. My new job, lesser title, smaller pay, cleaner conscience. And I press the elevator button extra hard like that will change history. It doesn't. He wins. He should. Not because he humiliated me, but because he refused to turn our children into an audience. I'm the one who chose applause over integrity. The quiet that follows is what I earned. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. She gambled a marriage for an office thrill, and when the truth came out, he didn't explode. He filed calmly, protected the kids, and moved on with dignity. Secrets turn into evidence. Kids should never carry adult mistakes. If you liked this video, please subscribe for more. Thanks and see y'all tomorrow.